Imagine you break up with a crazy ex, but you keep showing up at your place naked in the middle of the night. An abuser's dream, right? But nope. Meet Travis. He even joked to his friends, don't be surprised if you find me that one day. He knew just how crazy she was. She stalked him, slashed his tires, squeezes through his doggy door. Yeah, don't even ask me how she did that. But he kept sleeping with her because, well, sex is sex. Then his friends walked into the house. What they saw in the made even seasoned cops need to pop a Xanax. Some of the officers just squeezed the force right after. Welcome to Vendetta, guys. My name is Dima. You know, if you like me enjoy Ukrainian accent, then I think it'd be a sin not to hit that like button, not to drop a comment. Let me know where you're watching from, what time it is, where you are. I'm genuinely curious. If you subscribe to the channel, then I guarantee you'll get into heaven. No waiting in line, or maybe I'm not really sure. Alright folks, today's story is about a guy named Travis Alexander. Before we dive into all the insanity, let's break down who this guy actually was. He was born July 29th, 1977. His childhood, let's just say, wasn't great. His parents struggled with addiction, which, you know, is just a nice way of saying they couldn't give a damn about their 7 kids. Travis remembered his mom sleeping all day while the kids tried to scrape together a lunch from canned soup, whatever food they could find that had, you know, seen better days. Then, at 10 years old, his grandma takes him, his brother, his sister in. His grandma was, get this, a Mormon. She introduced the kids to the Mormon faith. Travis, he latched onto this faith with both hands. He started studying everything he could, went to church constantly. After high school, like a true believer, he went on his first 2-year mission trip to Denver. Then he moved to Mesa, Arizona. Why there? Because, as they say, it has the highest concentration of Mormons per square meter, plus that desert heat. Where'd he get a job? At a multi-level marketing company, or as we call it, an MLM. Today, it's known as Legal Shield. By the way, if you didn't know, in the Mormon community, MLMs are a huge deal. You know, sell to your friend, recruit your neighbor, everyone gets rich. Yeah, right. Gotta admit, by 29, he'd become pretty successful. Good-looking guy, making money, tons of friends, he had it all. He was charming, loved to flirt. Right here, my dears, is where the main conflict of his life begins. Because being that kind of ladies' man, while also trying to follow the Mormon rule of no sex before marriage, well, let's just say it was super hard for him. Right here, my dears, is where it gets interesting. Travis, on one hand, acted like this righteous Mormon in public. On the other, he was living a very active sex life, secretly, of course. The main thing was making sure nobody in his religious community found out, judged him. Because look, in public he plays the part of the perfect Mormon. Sunday service, reading the Holy Scripture, in helping widows, orphans, orgies, just kidding, or maybe not. It was super important to him that everyone thought he was a virgin. Meanwhile, thanks to the success of his MLM business, he was able to buy his first house, even rented out rooms to friends. He also discovered he had a talent for motivational speaking. It was right then, at one of those seminars, that he met the woman who would basically lead to his tragic end, Jodi Arias. Jodi was born July 9th, 1980, in California. From all accounts, her childhood was pretty normal. Middle class, her dad owned a restaurant, everything seemed okay. Her parents were Christians, but Jodi herself was never particularly interested in religion. What's interesting is that in her own words, her early life wasn't so rosy. She claimed she'd been mistreated since the age of 7, talking about incidents where force was used against her. But, as they say, there are 2 sides to every story. Her parents, of course, denied almost all of it. As a teenager, Jodi started to rebel a bit. Her parents once caught her trying to smoke some weed she'd hidden on the roof. They were, of course, shocked, searched her room, called the cops on her. For weed, the trust level in the family, as you can imagine, was sky high. Jodi's mother said she was always boy crazy, just jumping from one relationship to the next. When the family moved, Jodi got very upset, wrote in her diary about her loneliness. Her parents described her as extremely smart, but a little off. Her father even suggested she might have bipolar disorder because her mood could flip in a second, from happy to furious. He also said she never took responsibility for her actions. Her relationship with her parents kept getting worse. Eventually, Jodi just left home. She dropped out of school, got her GED, decided to become a photographer. She, loved to document everything, always with a camera. Which, as we'll soon see, is super ironic in this case. In 2001, she got a job as a waitress at a restaurant where she met a manager named Daryl Brewer. They fell in love, started dating in 2003. Eventually, Jodi, Daryl even bought a house together in California. She was still doing photography, working at the restaurant, but then decided to get another job. She got hired as a salesperson at the same MLM company where Travis worked. But as soon as Jodi started working there, her relationship with Daryl began to sour. So they decided to break up, but remain friends. Then, in September 2006, their company held a work conference in Las Vegas, a typical MLM party. A convention, speeches, networking, all on the company's dime. One of the evenings, there was a big banquet. It was there that Travis Jody first met. A spark, as they say, immediately flew between them. That spark very quickly turned into a fire, mostly of a sexual nature. They started traveling a lot together, were constantly in touch calls, emails, The more time Travis spent with Jody, the more he saw her as a potential wife. He totally fell for her, was writing to all his friends about how incredible she was. The only but, Travis was a Mormon, always pictured himself with a Mormon wife. So he started talking to Jody about his faith. Jody, who seemed ready to do anything for him, happily agreed. On November 26, 2006, she was baptized. Who baptized her? Travis himself. I mean, that's a whole other level, right? It was a huge gesture. Now the relationship became, so to speak, official in the eyes of his community. So in February 2007, Jody moved to Mesa, Arizona, to be even closer to Travis. For a while, everything between them was great. But, when the travel romance fades, daily life begins. You start to notice certain things. Travis began to see how possessive, how controlling Jody really was. In June 2007, he decided to break up with her. But Jody wasn't about to give up that easily. She suggested they just be friends with benefits, and damn it if it didn't work. He, as we remember, was a very sexual guy, so of course he agreed to that arrangement. Jody tried to seduce him in every way possible, even sneaking into his house naked, climbing into his bed. She was using sex as a tool to keep him. But in the meantime, Travis started dating other girls. As you can imagine, Jody didn't like that. She went crazy with jealousy, started stalking him. One time, she tracked him down with a new girlfriend, Lisa Andrews, went up to her house when no one was looking, slashed the tires on both of their cars. I mean, that's behavior that's, not exactly healthy. She even crawled into his house through the doggy door. Can you imagine? Crawling on your knees just to stop your ex from sleeping with a new girl. Come on, might as well have put a chastity belt on the guy. It was right then that Travis started to worry too. If he hadn't seen the red flags before, now they were flying high. He saw how relentless she was. He even told a friend at church once, "Don't be surprised if one Sunday I don't show up, you find me dead somewhere." Jody kept sending threatening letters to him, to the women he was dating. Travis started telling his friends about everything she was doing. They all knew how crazy she was. Yet, weirdly enough, Travis kept hooking up with her on the side. I'm in no way trying to say he deserved this, or that he walked right into it. But if you notice someone a little obsessed with you, that they're stalking you, that they're slashing your tires, I'm guessing, just a hunch. Personal opinion here is that it's probably not the best idea to keep sleeping with them, right? It was time to distance themselves physically, emotionally. So finally, in 2008, Jody moved to Eureka, California to live with her grandparents. April 2008 was the last time Jody claimed to have been with Travis. I can only imagine what a breath of fresh air Travis felt, knowing this crazy psycho was now a 15-hour drive away from him. He could finally date. He could breathe easy. Even if she wasn't available for sex, like he might have wanted. He still had two hands, if you get what I'm saying. However, on May 28, 2008, Jody's grandparents called the police, reported that their handgun had been stolen, along with some cash, electronics. When the police investigated this so-called burglary, they noticed it didn't really look like what a typical burglary looks like. There was money lying around that definitely would have been taken if it was a real burglary. It seemed like the motive for the theft was just to get the gun. Looking back, it certainly seems like Jody might have staged the whole situation just to get her hands on that pistol. So on June 2nd, 2008, a few days after the gun went missing, Jody rented a car in Redding, California, decided to go on a road trip. Her first stop on the trip was June 3rd. It was a visit to her ex-boyfriend, Daryl Brewer. While she was there, she asked to borrow 2 gas cans. She then left Northern California, drove to Southern California to meet up with friends. Then on June 5th at 11 a.m., she arrived in Salt Lake City, Utah, to meet a guy named Ryan Burns. Ryan stated that Jody looked completely normal, except that her hair was now dyed brown. She had a few cuts on her fingers, which Jody brushed off, saying it was just from her waitressing job. Jody, had met 2 months earlier at a work conference in Oklahoma. They had started talking on the phone 3 to 5 times a week, agreed to finally meet up, so she agreed to drive to his place in Utah, spend some time. Ryan stated that they eventually ended up in bed together, but since they were both Mormons, he didn't want their kiss to go too far. Meanwhile, in Mesa, Arizona, Mimi Hall, a friend of Travis's, started getting really worried about Travis. Travis were supposed to go on a work retreat to Cancun together. She hadn't heard from him in 5 days, which is pretty weird, right? You'd think if you had a big trip like that coming up, you'd be communicating, planning, talking about it, but nothing. It was like radio silence from Travis. On June 9th, the day before their planned trip, Mimi decided to go to his house, knock on the door, but there was no answer. However, she saw Travis's dog in the window, which worried her even more. She called one of her friends. That friend, along with the friend's boyfriend, drove to Travis's house to figure out what was going on. The three of them contacted another friend who gave them the code to Travis's garage door. They eventually got into his house through the garage. When they opened the door, they were hit with a horrific smell. They went back to Travis's room, but the door was locked. They were getting more worried. This next part is a little weird to me, doesn't even make a whole lot of sense, but Travis's roommate Zach Billings was also in the house in his own room, so wouldn't he have smelled that same horrific odor they were smelling? They started talking to Zach about what was happening, asked him if he knew anything. Zach stated that he, the other roommate, Enrique, hadn't seen Travis in about a week. They thought he'd actually already left for Cancun. Zach quickly found a spare key to Travis's room to find out what was going on, why it was locked, what that smell was, why everyone was worried, where was Travis. When they opened the door, everyone was in total shock. One of the girls stayed behind, as the others went into the room, saw large, dark stains near the bathroom. Going into the bathroom, they saw Travis, clearly deceased, curled up in the fetal position on the shower floor. It was a truly horrific scene. Travis had also sustained numerous severe injuries all over his body, so the friends called 911. Let's listen to that call.
What's going on?
A friend of ours is dead in his bedroom. We hadn't heard from him for a while. We think he's dead. His roommate just went in there and said there's lots of blood. I didn't go in, but I can give you the phone to someone who went in there.
Yes, please, can you?
Hello.
Hi, so what's going on?
He's dead. He's in his bedroom.
Okay.
In the shower.
Okay, how did this happen? Do you have any idea?
No, we have no idea. Everyone's been wondering about him for a few days.
She said that there was blood. So is it coming from his head? Did he cut
No,
his wrist?
it's all over the place.
Is there any weapons around?
I don't know. Not that I saw.
How many people are in the house?
How many are in the house right now? Just the 5 of us? 5 of us.
Okay, I need all of you outside.
Okay.
Hold on just a moment. Okay, you're a good friend of Travis's, correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Has he been depressed at all? Thinking about committing suicide, anything like that?
I don't think he's been thinking he committed suicide. He's been really depressed because he broke up with this girl, and he was all upset about that. But I don't think he would actually kill himself over that.
Has he been threatened by anyone recently?
Yes, he has. Okay. He has an ex-girlfriend that's been bothering him and following him and slashing tires and things like that.
And do you know the ex-girlfriend's name?
Do you remember it? Yeah. What's his ex-girlfriend's name? Ask Taylor.
And do you know if he's ever reported it to the police?
Her name is Jody.
The first name heard on that 911 call was Jody. Of course, everyone was in total shock. Everybody who was anybody showed up at the scene. Police, paramedics, detectives, even the county prosecutor, Juan Martinez. You know what the first just brilliant theory was? That it was a self-inflicted event. Yep. You heard that right. A person with those kinds of injuries, they're thinking it was self-inflicted. But, as you can imagine, the extent of those injuries very quickly told a completely different story. Travis had sustained injuries that left no doubt it was an assault. On top of that, there was evidence a firearm was involved. Also, numerous severe injuries. Bottom line, it was what forensics calls overkill, excessive violence. The medical examiner later confirmed the assault had been extremely brutal. There were signs on Travis's hands indicating he had tried to defend himself. Juan Martinez stated that the injuries were so severe, they had trouble even determining which one had been fatal. Cops gave interviews after admitted that some of the officers needed a Xanax to calm down. Others who couldn't handle the scene just put in their resignation. There were undeniable signs at the scene that a tragedy had occurred, including a dark handprint on the wall. When detectives began their sweep, they noticed that part of the crime scene looked like someone had tried to clean it up. The bedding from Travis's bed was gone. His body looked as if someone had attempted to wash it. Importantly, there were no signs of a break-in. This meant the perpetrator was someone Travis knew, someone he trusted. The roommates, of course, were questioned first, but they were eventually cleared. But the most interesting find awaited the cops in the washing machine. In there, mixed with clothes, then towel, they found a digital camera. That was a genius move, right? Throwing a camera in the washing machine to destroy it. The camera, of course, wouldn't turn on, but the SD cards, folks, they usually survive a wash cycle. Whoever did this obviously didn't know that. While the cops are dealing with this find, a wild thing happens. Jody herself calls to offer her help in the investigation into the death of her friend, Travis. She acted like she was completely devastated. Even published a post on MySpace talking about how much pain she was in. She probably thought this would divert suspicion from her. But, as you can imagine, she was already front, center. During the call with the detective, she explained that she, Travis, had recently broken up, but the breakup was mutual. She claimed the last time she saw him was in April, that at the time of the events, she had an ironclad alibi, that same road trip to Utah. She even added that Travis supposedly didn't want her to go, that they had argued about it. This way, she was trying to make it crystal clear that she was nowhere near Arizona.
You can call her back if you want, but it's not necessary. My phone died, so I wasn't getting back to anybody. And what else? Oh, and I drove 100 miles in the wrong direction. Over 100 miles, thank you very much. So yeah, remember New Mexico? It was a lot like that. Only you weren't here to prevent me from going into the 3 digits. So fun. Tell you all about that later. Also, we were talking about, when we were talking about your upcoming travels my way, I was looking at the May calendar, so I'm all confused. But Heather and I are going to see Othello on July 1st, and we would love for you to accompany us. I don't know when Team Freedom's event is though, but it's on the list, so we could do Shakespeare, Crater Lake, and the coast. So if you can make it, if not, we'll just do the coast and Crater Lake. But let me know, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.
Listening to that voicemail, you can't help but notice the quiver in her voice. She's talking so fast, in so much detail. To me, it just seems, really fake, like she was in the car, thinking to herself, hey, I'll call him, leave a voicemail, that'll be my alibi. Maybe that's just me, but that's exactly how it looks. On June 12, 2008, detectives asked several of Travis's friends to provide DNA fingerprint samples. Jody, of course, agreed. But when the police asked 2 of his closest friends, Chris and Sky Hughes, if anyone had a motive, they both, without hesitating, answered Jody Arias. At this stage, she becomes their prime suspect. But there was still confusion, because she had an alibi that same road trip to Utah. So the investigation stalled out a bit until that same SD card from the washing machine came back from the forensics lab. They were able to recover the photos, even the ones Jody had deleted. These photos, folks, completely changed the course of the case. It was a series of pictures from the last moments of Travis's life. They created a minute-by-minute timeline. First intimate photos of Jody, Travis, taken around 1:40 p.m. on June 4th, 2008. The last photo of Travis alive was taken in the shower at 5:29 p.m. A few minutes, photos appear, documenting the aftermath of the horrific event that had just taken place in that bathroom. Investigators were now certain Jody was involved. Evidence like this is extremely rare in these kinds of cases. Then they remembered those 2 gas cans she had borrowed. Investigators concluded she had used them to cross Arizona without stopping at gas stations, without leaving a trail. This, folks, now pointed to a premeditated crime. But Jody kept sticking to her story. She was never in Arizona. This was despite the nearly 20-hour hole in her alibi, the timestamp photos that prove she was at Travis's house. So they finally get here for questioning, right? She's just making this huge show of being all upset, playing the total victim. She's like, she can't even believe they're talking to her in the first place.
And even if there's still 20 some odd hours, even if you pulled over to sleep a couple of times.
Oh, did I tell you that I got stranded?
Yeah.
Okay.
You mentioned that. If you slept for 10 hours,
I only slept for about
here
8
and
hours.
here, it would still leave 18 some odd hours for something else. Okay. This is what people are focusing on, is this trip that you took. Because they're saying she left, she didn't get to till Thursday. Wednesday? That's when Travis was killed.
I did not go near his house. Aren't there?
I pulled your cell records. Your cell phone was turned off between here and here. Okay? But the last place it pulled it was here. The next place it turned on was here. What does that show me?
Oh, well, I began. Oh, no.
Is there plenty of time for you to do that? Yes. And do I believe that you had come to visit Travis? Yes. I truly believe it. Did you have the opportunity? Yes. You were traveling alone. There's no other witnesses. Your phone just happened to turn off from here to here.
Well, I didn't turn it off physically, but it died.
And then it magically, you found your charger here?
It was packed under the seat of the passenger side. And it was when I was...
When you were lost, you couldn't have maybe pulled over and found it? Or...
Well, I did finally start looking when I was stranded. I wouldn't have pulled over when I was lost.
Okay, I've been focusing on this and going over and over in my mind.
Absolutely not. I was nowhere near Mesa. I was nowhere near Phoenix. I wasn't even close to him.
What if I could show you proof you were there? Would that change your mind?
I wasn't there.
Be honest with me, Jody.
I was not at Travis's house.
25 Auto just happens to be the same caliber as the weapon used to kill him.
A 25 Auto was used to kill Travis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, along with multiple stab wounds. Jody, if you want, I can show you some pictures of him. Do you want to see pictures of him?
Part of me does and part of me doesn't.
Why? Because you don't want to remember?
No,
Jody.
There's a morbid curiosity.
Jody.
I wanted to know how he died.
We can keep playing these games over and over again. I'm not going to believe you.
So the questioning goes on. She's just denying everything. Says she wasn't with Travis, that the timestamps on the photos are fake, blah, blah, blah. Bottom line, she's trying to squirm her way out of it any way she can. But you can see she's stressed. You can tell her story is falling apart. So she's smack in the middle of the getting questioned for murder, and she figures now the perfect time to pop a headstand. Yeah, headstand. I'm not even kidding, I'm just serious. She's singing, having a full chat with herself. The whole scene is freak show. That was crazy. It's exactly that footage, which is all over YouTube, that made this case so famous. It raises the question, what was that? Was she trying to look innocent? Was she having a mental breakdown? Or was this prep for an insanity defense? Honestly, I think she's just genuinely nuts. So of course they arrest her. Then, once she's changed into a prison jumpsuit, she comes up with a new plan. A new, brilliant story. Now, Jody says, yeah, she was there. But 2 other people broke into the house, harmed Travis right in front of her, then left poor little her alive. This, of course, leads the cops to one simple question. So why didn't you call the police after they left? But Jody, as always, had her excuses ready. First, they had threatened her family. Second, this is just genius, she was ashamed that she didn't help Travis. She didn't want to look like a bad friend. Seriously? Nobody, of course, bought that bullshit. On July 8th, 2008, Jody was charged with a first-degree offense. While she was waiting for trial, she started giving interviews left-right, talking about her innocence. The case quickly became mega popular. It took both sides 5 years to prepare for the trial. During that time, Jody came up with a completely new story.
2 hours into the interview that I asked her, is there anything else you want to talk about? And then she sighed, sat back in her chair, and told me this most elaborate tale. I almost fell off my seat.
Boy, this is really hard. I'm trying to think if I want to say this or not. There's a lot of evidence that places me at Travis's house, and there is a reason for that. And that reason is that that I did see Travis the day that he passed away. A lot of things happened that day. I almost lost my life as well.
She was so willing to share this information that could be incredibly detrimental to her case.
There was an argument among some people, 2 individuals, that one wanted to take my life. And
she told me that the intruder actually put a gun to her head and pulled the trigger.
The guy with the gun was standing near me, and I just remember holding my head and closing my eyes. He pulled the trigger, and nothing happened, just a click.
Subsequently, we found out that in her interrogation with Detective Esteban Flores of the Mesa PD, that the intruder who held the gun to her head took her information and let her go.
He grabbed my wallet and he was looking through it.
What's interesting is that Jody never told Detective Flores that the intruder tried to kill her.
He said, "You need to leave, and don't you call anybody, and don't you say anything, and don't you act like anything happened."
Completely different account of what actually happened. So it hit me that if she could so effortlessly make up this lie in front of me, what else is she capable of?
But thank you very much.
Oh, thanks.
You know what the scariest part is? When you watch these interviews of hers, you almost want to believe her. She speaks so softly, gives so many details, like she's helping you figure it all out. But in reality, she's just expertly feeding you a line of crap. It's disgusting how a master manipulator works. So, right up until the trial, she stuck to her story about the intruders, went on about what a good guy Travis was, but then, once she got to court, everything changed again. January 2nd, 2013, the show begins. The trial is broadcast on television. The whole country, glued to their screens, is watching every second. People were just furious with Jody. She quickly became one of the most hated people in the United States. When the trial started, the prosecution's position was crystal clear. The prosecutor on this case was Juan Martinez. This, folks, wasn't just some random prosecutor. This was the same guy who was one of the first people on the crime scene. He saw everything with his own eyes. So for him, this wasn't just a job. It was deeply personal. During the trial, there were a lot of moments when he could barely contain his irritation just looking at Jody.
This is a very small closet, isn't it?
No, it's bigger than the cell that I live in.
It's bigger than what?
It's bigger than the cell that I live in. It's not a small closet.
Ma'am, we don't want to know where you live in. Do you understand that?
I'm just using that as reference. It's
Ma'am,
not small.
Do you understand? Did I ask you where you were living?
No.
We're clear, right? We do not want to know where you're living right now. You understand that?
Okay, sorry.
No need to be. Take that attitude that... Is there an issue with you with answering the questions as they're posed?
Sometimes, but I'm trying to answer them the best I can.
So is it an attitude issue with you then?
Objection, argumentative, Your Honor. Move to...
The prosecution pushed for the death penalty. That's exactly what Travis's family wanted. They argued the crime was premeditated, also cold-blooded. The medical examiner was called to the stand, confirming the injuries were extremely severe. There were defensive signs on Travis's hands. Right here, folks, the puzzles begin. There's that last photo of Travis, taken just a moment before everything happened. It's not clear what's going on in it. Is he posing seductively for the camera? Or is that a look of fear because a weapon is already aimed at him? Nobody knows. Another question. The photos from the scene show signs of a struggle all down the hallway. But the last photo was taken in the shower. How did the signs of a struggle get from the shower to the hallway? Was he trying to run out, then got dragged back in? I don't know. It just ain't adding up for me here. Many of the photos they managed to recover look accidental, like the camera was dropped, kept taking pictures, but in some of them, the aftermath of the assault is clearly visible. To support their position, the prosecution called Mimi Hall, Travis's friend. She testified that he was never aggressive. They even showed those very difficult to look at photos in the courtroom. They say many of Travis's relatives, friends, had to close their eyes or even leave the room. The examination confirmed that both a sharp instrument, also a firearm, were involved in the assault. By the way, about the weapon. The pistol that went missing from Jody's grandparents' house was the same caliber as the shell casing found at the crime scene. What a coincidence, right? Though the pistol itself was never found. Another important piece of evidence was Jody's personal diary. Instead of stories about how Travis mistreated her, it was filled with pages about how much she loved him, how wonderful her life was with him. A few days after the trial began, it was finally the defense's turn. Shockingly, Jody herself takes the stand to testify, which, happens very rarely. When she got up there, she had another, completely new story. Now she admits she was the one who ended Travis's life, but it was self-defense, of course.
2 years later, in 2010, yet another story. Yes, she says she did kill Travis Alexander, but it was self-defense. Her lawyer is making the case for...
Jody believed that Travis was going to kill her. Travis left Jody no other option but to defend herself.
As Arias tells it, it all started with those naked pictures. She testified that while she and Alexander were snapping photos, she dropped the camera and Alexander got incredibly angry. So this time, she says, she grabbed the gun she knew Alexander kept in his closet.
I grabbed the gun. I ran out of the closet. He was chasing me. I turned around and we were in the middle of the bathroom. I pointed it at him with both of my hands. I thought that would stop him. If someone were pointing a gun at me, I would stop. But he just kept running. He got like a linebacker. He got kind of low and grabbed my waist. But before he did that, as he was lunging at me, the gun went off. I didn't mean to shoot.
So, new day, new story from Jody. Now, it turns out it was self-defense. Seriously, I can only imagine her lawyers face-palming. Seriously, they had to prove self-defense for a woman who didn't have a single damn scratch in her. That was not easy, right? Her lead attorney, the poor guy, even tried to get off this case, but the judge said, nope. You know what the lawyer revealed? That working with Jody is just hell. He said she treated him horribly, constantly manipulated him, even supposedly tried to, well, let's just say seduce him. Bottom line, the whole package. So they realized that proving her innocence was a zero-chance game. Their new goal became much simpler. Just save her from the death penalty. Everyone at that point was in a terrible state, but Jody, she seemed to be enjoying the show. She was ready to say, do whatever it took to look innocent, even if it meant dragging Travis's name through the mud when he could no longer defend himself. Jody claimed Travis mistreated her, but then she went even further. She leveled the filthiest accusations you can imagine against him. Accusations about his interests that were completely unacceptable. You know what they provided as proof? A recording of one of their intimate conversations. Yep, they played that whole awkward audio right there in the courtroom for everyone. I'm not gonna play it for you. Seriously, look it up yourself if you're curious. It's super creepy. I'd probably get banned for it anyway, but let's be real. Even if he said some weird stuff on there, it in no way justifies what was done to him. It has absolutely nothing to do with the case. Besides that one weird conversation, there is not a single damn shred of proof that Travis was ever involved in any unlawful acts involving children. As if that wasn't enough, Jody went even further. She even claimed she found materials of an extremely inappropriate nature on his computer. But folks, when it's Jody Arias saying it, I take that with, a giant grain of salt. Because of course, no proof of that was ever found. You just can't trust her. She was making these crazy claims to paint Travis as some kind of disgusting predator. She told graphic stories in court about their relationship, basically trying to present him as an abuser. It's, a classic move. For years, she had talked about what a great guy he was, that he would never hurt her. Now that her back was against the wall, she suddenly remembers he was a monster. Yeah, right, we believe that. It really shows her character. Like her father said, she's not one to take responsibility. So she takes the stand, testifies for, get this, 8 straight days. 8 days she's telling the court about her emotional torment. But no matter how she tried to squirm, the prosecution easily poked holes in her story, pointed out all the contradictions. Yet Jody herself remained confident, never doubting for a second that she'd be acquitted. After this whole show, the jury went to deliberate. They were in there for 4 days. When they came back with a verdict, it turned out they couldn't reach an agreement. They were completely deadlocked.
This case has court watchers riveted, not only because of the sheer brutality of it, but also because of the couple's salacious sexual relationship. They videotaped themselves having sex and took provocative photos. On the day of the murder, June 4th, 2008, the two snapped naked photos of each other at Alexander's home, right before the killing.
So, when they announced the jury was deadlocked, the reaction was, let's just say, weird. Jody, they say, was in absolute shock. Why shocked? In her mind, she was supposed to walk free. But this was a draw. That's better than prison, no? But what's even weirder, Travis's family, his friends, were reportedly so happy. Happy? Because the person responsible for their son's death, didn't get a verdict. Everything had to start all over again? Honestly, I don't get that. Maybe they were just happy she wasn't acquitted? Who knows? Meanwhile, a huge crowd had gathered outside the courthouse. Of course, what does Jody do before they take her back to her cell? That's right, she's giving another interview. This video, folks, is just pure gold. Pure, uncut narcissism.
You want to give Travis's family closure. You know they want you dead. So why don't you give them that closure?
What do you mean by that? Why don't I kill myself? Is that what you're asking?
No, why don't you accept the fate of the death penalty if you know that's what they want? If you truly care about their closure.
I've caused them a lot of pain. I've caused my family a lot of pain. And I think that by asking for death, I'm only going to cause more pain to my family.
Why didn't you apologize to them?
I did apologize to them.
You never said, I'm sorry.
I said that I'm sorry, that I'll never be able to make up for what I did, and that I can never replace their loss.
But you didn't use the word, I'm sorry.
Well, then I'm sorry I didn't say that, because certainly I am sorry. I think in a sense, the words I'm sorry just seem meaningless, especially since nobody believes what I'm saying anyway.
You said it right there, no one believes a word out of your mouth. Why do you keep talking?
Because I know that I've lied before. That doesn't mean that I'm a liar by definition, by character.
In your final statement today, you talked about all sorts of things you might be able to do in prison. Teach other prisoners Spanish, donate more of your hair, start a recycling program. Do you know how trivial that sounded in the face of what you did?
Well, there isn't a whole lot that I know about prison. And these are only things that I'm able to ascertain from having never been there. So I believe that when I get there, I will find ways, better ways to contribute and pay back.
But can't you grow out your hair on death row and donate it?
Yeah, it'll be less wigs if I get executed. I mean, I know that sounds trivial.
It does.
I didn't know that you were a hater when you came to interview me.
So, like, it's some bad reality TV show. She tells the reporter she didn't realize he was a hater when he came to interview her. All right, the next stage of this circus. Deciding whether Jody would get the death penalty or if she'd just rot in prison for the rest of her days. She was given the chance to get up, tell them why she thought she deserved to live. So she begins. She, you see, can be useful in prison. She can start a recycling program. Seriously, teach other inmates to read, write, become a mentor for victims of domestic violence. My favorite one is this. She can grow out her hair to donate it to charity. So I'm just sitting there thinking, seriously, a wig? You think a wig made from your own hair is going to save you from the death penalty? Nah, no way. Not even close. But just when you think the level of insanity has maxed out, she pulls out a t-shirt. A t-shirt that says Survivor. She starts talking about how you can buy the same one to support charities. I mean, the person is on trial for a major offense, turning it into a damn infomercial. She's trying to sell the jury on the idea that, look at me, I'm the poor victim here. It's just insane. So we know that for the death penalty, you need a unanimous jury decision. But when they came back, the vote was split. 8 for the death penalty, 4 for life. That meant a mistrial for the penalty phase, starting all over. In February 2014, they put together a new jury, same story all over again. This time, 11 for the death penalty, 1 for life. Another mistrial. Under Arizona law, they only get 2 shots at the death penalty. So now she was only looking at life in prison. Jody's lawyer, of course, tried one last Hail Mary, filing a motion to dismiss all charges, claiming that thousands of files had supposedly disappeared from Travis's computer while it was in police custody. But of course, there was no real proof of this. Finally, in April 2015, almost 7 years after Travis's passing, the judge sentenced Jody Arias to life in prison, without the possibility of parole. She was sent to the Perryville prison in Arizona. She spent her first 2 years in solitary confinement, 3 hours a day, but was later moved to less conditions. She claims she was harassed there by other women. In 2017, she even sued her own defense team for writing a book about her. Remember that passionate prosecutor, Juan Martinez? Well, karma's a weird thing. In 2020, he was fired after a misconduct scandal, then later disbarred, partly for leaking the name of a juror in Jody's case. Jody, of course, tried to use this for an appeal, but she was denied. Right here, folks, is where it gets really interesting. A new documentary recently came out, where Jody's former cellmates, Tracy, then Donovan, talk about their relationships with her. Donovan said it straight up, and I quote, "There was no self-defense. She's a cold-blooded killer. She would do it again." They had been friends up until 2016. They say, at first, Jody seemed like a sweet, quiet artist to them. They even called her Songbird because she supposedly sang beautifully. Alright, I gotta stop here for a sec. I've actually seen the video of her singing in the prison talent show, and let me just say, it's rough, like really rough. The whole voice of an angel thing she was talking about, it's not even close. Donovan said that Jody used her sexuality to get things from other inmates, was constantly flirting with the guards, the cherry on top. Jody gave them tattoos in prison, with an eraser, a staple, a pencil. She even signed them. At the same time, according to them, she was using them for protection, because she was terrified of the other inmates.
12 years later, Arias' former cellmates are speaking out. Donovan Baring and Tracy Brown appear in a new Lifetime documentary, Jody Arias, Cellmate Secrets.
She got away with things that other inmates didn't get away with. She was a very attractive young girl who liked to flirt, and the male guards just ate it up.
They say Arias even took part in a jailhouse striptease, which was recreated for the TV special.
Jody stood up, took her clothes off, and danced with me.
Tracy was incarcerated for kidnapping. Donovan was charged with accessory to arson. Both ex-cellmates now have permanent reminders of their time in jail with Jodi Arias. Tattoos personally inked and signed by the notorious killer, who made the tattoos using mascara and lead from a pencil, which she sharpened into a needle. Arias also tattooed this delicate crystal on Tracy's chest, but Tracy has since tattooed a butterfly over the original artwork.
Jodi, it seems, knew how to turn people into her puppets. She manipulated Tracy, Donovan so much that they did whatever she asked. One time, she even shaved Donovan's hair with nail polish remover. The gods, it seemed, were much more lenient with her than with others. This whole time, the pair had no idea what a media spectacle Jodi's case was. They only knew her version, that her boyfriend had been harmed right in front of her. Donovan, after getting out of prison, agreed to become her voice on social media. She updated her Twitter, posted photos of her paintings, argued with haters, all based on instructions Jodi gave her over the phone every day. It was basically a full-time job. But it was then that Donovan started talking to Jodi's mom. Her eyes started to open. She realized Jodi's stories weren't adding up. The turning point came when Jodi ordered her to publish horrific accusations against her own father. Donovan refused. In response, Jodi flew into a rage, attacked her. That's when Donovan changed all the passwords, locked her out. Being Jodi's voice brought Donovan a lot of hate, even threats, but she still went to the trial every day. It was there, listening to the evidence, that she finally understood the full brutality of what happened, what Jodi was willing to do to save herself. But the story with the accusations against her father had a tragic follow-up. After they became public, his life turned into a live-in hell. 6 days later, Jodi's father passed away. According to Donovan, it was a direct result of the mountain of lies his daughter had created. So, what about Jodi herself? She's having a hard time in prison now. Honestly, good. She has stated that life in prison is worse than the death penalty, that if she could, she would do an irreversible thing to herself. But at the same time, she's not sitting idle. She sells her paintings from prison, making thousands of dollars a month. People are actually buying this crap. Her website also sells those same survivor t-shirts. I just can't with this narcissism. The story of Jodi Arias is just insane. I'm glad Travis's family finally got justice, that this woman will remain behind bars forever. My heart aches for all his friends, his family, who had to sit in court, listen to all of that. But weirdly enough, there are entire groups of people who still believe in Jodi's innocence. So I'm really curious, what do you, the viewers, think? Do you believe she's innocent or guilty? Let me know in the comments. Alright guys, thank you so much for stopping by. Hope you appreciated how I broke down this case. Please, just don't kill anybody. I don't know. Stay safe. See you next time. Bye.